Hello and welcome to our 9th tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be understanding how to work with HTML forms. Now a form is a mechanism that is used to collect data from a user, and I want you to see this on the screen is also a form that is helping the user of the system collect his login details. And if you can see, even here we have our form to add other or data to our databases, and we are using forms to collect data from our users. So let us understand what a form is in HTML. So we create a form in HTML by opening up a form tag, which you said you open the form, and then whenever you open the tag you close it out. And the form has these different attributes. It has the action attribute, which directs it to the action it should take when the user submits the form. So here you put in the kind of action you want it to take, or referring it to the page. And also we have the method attribute, which attribute will tell the form the kind of method to use. We have posts, or we even have sometimes what they call the get method. And then so the difference between post and get is that get is not used when you are going to submit sensitive data, because that data can be seen or is visible in the URL of the page, as well as post is used when you are posting very sensitive data like personal information, passwords and all that, because the data is not seen and it can take on as much data as possible. Now we're going to be looking at different attributes. We have the input, we have the drop down list, we have the button, we have the buttons, we have the checkboxes and the radio buttons. So let's look at each element of the HTML form. Okay, so like I said, we have the input element, which gives a user an opportunity to input data into the system. How you open it, you say input, and then you give it the type of text, and then you give it the name. The name attribute will store, will get all the data that is inputted in that very attribute and pass it on to the action page. So for now, don't worry so much about it. It will be explained in the PHP lectures, but let's focus so much on the type of our input. So when we save and run, we shall see that this is the kind of form that we have for now. And let us try to put there some line break. So I've put 2 lines in between so that we can see. So this is our form for now. We have the name where we can write the name, and then we have where we can even write our course, which is BBC. So let's say if we want to have a box where we want our user to be able to put in the password and it is not seen. What we do, let me copy this and paste it right down here. I'll change this label and give it a name of password, and then the type I'll change it to password. And then when I save and I refresh, you see that I have my box here of password, and when I type, it is hidden with the password characters. Let us say we want a box that will be able to capture user comments. Here we are going to use an element called the text area. So how will you use the text area? You open it, text area, then you close the text area, then we shall say this is going to be our enter comments. And then I'll give it a label. Remember how we label our tag? We said we give it a label tag. And in this case, my label, I'm going to name it other comments. So when I save and I refresh, you see that I have enter other comments. Let me put some space in between here so that you can see the difference of what I am working on. Let me put a line break here. So when I put a line break and I save, you see that this is on the next line, and I think it's better I just put line breaks at the end of all these. So the text area also has different attributes. It can have an attribute of rows, where you give the maximum number of rows you want. For example, I want only 7 rows, and it only set 3. And it also has an attribute of columns, where you specify, for example, I want 30 columns, and then it also has the name attribute. So when I save and refresh, you see that my box has widened, and let's say I want to give it more rows. Rows are these ones. So I have 1, 2, and 3. Let's say if I want to only give it 2 rows, but I want to give it like about 80 columns. Columns are these straight ones. So when I save and I refresh, you see that it's wider and longer, and it only has 2 rows. I can maybe choose to make them 6. And I save and refresh, you'll see that my text area has those rows and columns. So let's look at the checkboxes. In case I want to have an area where a user can check different course units that they want, in the program. So we use an element called input, but we give it a type of checkbox. So I'm going to copy this and paste it right below it, so that I have like 4 checkboxes. And this I'm going to call it PGO, and then this one I'm going to call it corporate database management, and this one I am going to call it business software engineering. So when I save and I refresh, you see that I have different checkboxes which I can uncheck and check. But I am going to make sure I give them different names basing on what I want to store, or the value that I want to store differently in my data that is submitted using the post or get method. So this one I'll give it PJ. I'll give it the name of programming in Java or Oracle. This one I'll give it corporate database management, and this one I'll give it business software engineering. Because when I click on submit and I'm submitting my form, it will get this name and assign the data that has been inputted in or checked here in my form, and attach it to the method that I'm using to post my data for the script that is going to run and process my data. So let us look at a scenario where we want to only select one option in the many options that we have. If we require a user to select only one option, not to be able to select many, but only one option. Let's say maybe to choose either they are male or they are female. I'm going to assign it a type of radio, and then you give the name of what you want, let's say sex or gender. And this name is all the same on all the different inputs that you have that are going to be submitting this. Unlike the checkboxes where the name is going to be different based on what the user has checked, this time round I am going to only use one name to assign to that group of options where I want the user to pick only one alternative. And then the value, which in this case will be either female or male. So let's see how it works. So I am going to have 2 input elements. One, they're all going to be assigned with a type of radio, meaning the radio button, and the name is all the same on that option where I want the user to select one option, and then the value is what changes. So if the user selects the female radio button, I should assign it a value of female, and if the user selects the male radio button, I should assign it the value of male. And let's add one more of other, and say if I want to, maybe someone is not sure, I'll call here, I'll assign it a variable, and I call it not sure, and here I'll display to the user not sure, if they're maybe not sure of their sex. So I'll say not sure. So when I come here and I save and I refresh, you see that I have my radio buttons, and the user can only select one option, because you cannot either be male or female unless if I have a specific type of gender that I want to display. So let's say we want a drop down list that is going to fall on our form, and then the user selects their study time, let's say either day or evening. We are going to use a tag called select. So we use the select tag, and inside the select tag we use another element called option, and we're going to use the option tag and I'll have another option, and I'll call it evening. So when I save and I refresh on my form, you see here that I have my form, and I can choose either between day or I can choose evening. So let's look at the attributes. Here the name, unlike the previous, you give the name in the select you give the name attribute in the select tag, and in this case it's going to be, let's say, group, and this, whenever this group thing, it will store whatever option the user is going to check from here. And here I'll give the value, which value is going to be passed whenever I click day, which is going to be day. And here the attribute, I'll give value. Which value do I want? It will be eve. So whenever I click on evening and I select evening, that value will be assigned to, it will be assigned to the name group, which will be passed in my method when I am submitting the form. So let's say at the beginning of my page, I want to put there a button where the user will be able to click and upload their profile picture. So what I'm going to do, I am going to use a tag called input. I'm going to use the input tag, and then I'm going to give it a type of file. So, and then the name, you give it whatever you want, as long as you know you will reference it, and I'm going to call it ProPic. So when I save here and I refresh, you see that I have my button, and when I click on it, it brings a dialog box for me to upload my picture, and you select any picture, and you see that it's directing to the file that is being uploaded. So after we have captured all the data we want, we need to have a button that will help us to submit our form. So how do we put those buttons? I will come to the bottom of my page. Maybe let me put a horizontal rule here, horizontal rule, and then I will use the input tag. Like I told you at the beginning, the input tag is one of the most commonly used tag in the form, and then I'll give it an option of submit. So when I save and I refresh on my changes, I'll see that I have the submit button, which will, when I click on it, it will take me to the form. So let's say if I want to clear this form, I've put in data, but I want to remove all this data, I'll have a button, and let me copy this of input, and I paste it here, and I'll give it a type of reset, and then I save. When I refresh here, I see I have two buttons. When I click on this, it will remove every data that I had put in here before, and reset. So that is it for today. These are all the most of the commonly used elements of the form, and we have our form ready with almost every element that you ever need. Thank you for watching, and see you in the 10th tutorial, where we're going to be looking at flexes, divs, and then we dive into CSS to make our form beautiful.